it's already pushed away because its mother, it started off in its mother, which was Kedusha Dechuya. It's already been rejected because its mother had a mum, and it started off like that. You can't bring it as a sacrifice. Lifrikino, so what are you going to do? Redeem it? Layalimi lemitvas pidyanan. Okay, this is a slightly difficult concept, but the way it works is that if something has a sanctity that's a full sanctity, and then I exchange it for something else, so the sanctity goes off the original item and goes on to the second one. But if the first item doesn't have a full sanctity, and I'm trying to exchange it over to the next one, it doesn't have enough to lift off to put it onto the next one. So over here, because its mother was redeemed already, and it was there, so I can't redeem it again. It doesn't have enough in sanctity in it to get a redemption going on that it should be able to be lifted off this and to be put onto that. So because le'alimi, it's not strong enough. Lemitvas pidyon for the pidyon to grasp the sanctity. It's not strong enough to make that exchange. I'm looking for an example for that. But
it's only Gzeir D'Rabbanan, says Rashi.
Yes, Rashi says it's Gzeir D'Rabbanan.
So that's why
the sheep for the Petra Kamor.
You know, but the Gemara is not saying just like that. The Gemara is giving a logic to that Gzeir D'Rabbanan, right?
Okay.
So I want to explain what the logic is.
Is the sheep for the Petra Kamor an example?
Yeah, the only thing is the sheep is mundane, but I couldn't exchange. The sheep doesn't have any sanctity at all.
You can do anything you want
You
with
can do
it.
anything with it you want. You're saying like exchanging one sheep for the other. Now I'm looking for something in Gashmias, where you see that because it's too weak, you can't get it over. Because it's too weak, it's worse. That's what I'm saying. If it would have been worse, if it would have been stronger, it would have been better. The only example I can think is if you have a dark stain on a shirt, you can take it out. You bleach it out, whatever. But you have those little stains that aren't so dark, they stay there forever. That's like I'm thinking. Those little things that are there, they just get stuck there. That's what's happening. It's a bad example. It's the opposite. Those little things you can't get off. Okay, Amri b'Marava Mishmei Rab Chanina. We said in the West, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, that we do have a solution. In Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Chanina was from Eretz Yisrael, from the first Amiroim there, Rabbi Chanina Bar Chama. Samach lepidyanin matvisan. Before it's
was in Eretz Yisrael?
Yeah.
But did he go to Babel?
I don't know that he went to
Must
Babel.
be, because the only person who would say Amri b'Marava would be when you're in Babel. You can't say it when you're in Eretz Yisrael.
Amri b'Marava Mishmei Rabbi Chanina. In Eretz Yisrael, they said in the name of Rabbi Chanina.
Okay.
So, and the Gemara is discussing this, that Samach lepidyanin matvisan, that near the redemption, you grasp it, that means you sanctify it, l'shem ha'isezevach, for the same sacrifice that its mother was. The Gemara says, 1 second, Samach lepidyanan, before its redemption, l'meimer you're making it look like it's eligible for redemption. This thing was born already, and we said that you can't redeem it. What you do here is like this. You see the mother's pregnant. You're redeeming the mother. Instead of redeeming the child inside, you sanctify the child inside for the same sacrifice of the mother before the redemption. Then you redeem the mother. That way, the child gets a full sanctity.
Cool.
And then, what are you going to do with it? Then you bring it as that sacrifice. That's what I would hope that's what you can do. Rashi doesn't say that though. Rashi says, and then you wait till it gets a mum and you redeem it. I don't know why you can't bring it as a sacrifice. I guess because it went through the redemption process inside the mother, but because you've added onto it, it's this extra sanctity beforehand. So then you're able to at least redeem it.
Reb Chaim says you don't bring it as a sacrifice because it's a bet b'kuah. It doesn't need to be
Oh, you're making complications there. You're throwing in those.
Favorite topic, bet b'kuah.
Okay. My time. What my time? What's the reason? I'm sorry. Time of my. Time of my. It's unclear what the Gemara means here. Let's just learn it. Time of my. What's the reason for Rav Huna? Rav Levi, that Rav Huna said you have to let it die. Gzeir Shem Yigdal Mem Darim Adarim. We have a decree. If you can just let this animal have an offspring, and you don't do anything with the offspring, what you're going to end up doing is that you're going to, if you have a sacrifice that has a mum, you're just going to let it hang around, and at least you'll get the products from it. And those products, it will have offspring, and you'll have like large herds of animals that have certain halachas that make it very complicated, because you can't use the wool, and you'll have all these halachas that are applicable, and we don't want these animals hanging around. You're going to end up violating the laws. Rashi gives the other interpretation. Ravina asked Rav Sheshas, what about sanctifying it for any sacrifice? We said that you sanctify this animal inside, according to Rabbi Chanina. You sanctify it for the original sacrifice that its mother was. What about any other sacrifice? Can you just call it another name? Amalei ein matvisin. So you can't do that. My taima. What's the reason? Amalei gamer b'sharecha b'sharecha mi b'char. We compare it to a firstborn animal. Ma b'charim matvisin l'chol zevach shir. It's just like a firstborn animal. You can't pronounce it any sacrifice. It's a b'char. You can't sanctify it for another sacrifice. It remains a bechar. Because it says the word b'sharecha here, it says the word b'sharecha there. Just like by bechar, limited that it's stuck as a sacrifice of bechar, so too this offspring of Psulei HaMikdashim is stuck in the sacrifice of its mother. Tani Kavaseder of Sheshis. We're going to have a nice long brisa here. Most of the things in this brisa you're going to be familiar with. There's going to be some details that are not, and the Gemara on the next page is going to discuss those details, and it goes until the Mishnah. Easy Gemara, and we learned most of it already in the Mishnah. The brisa, according to Rav Sheshas, is going to prove that it's stuck in the sacrifice of its mother, the offspring after the redemption. Okay, but we start off slow here, just like our Mishnah did. Kodshim shekadamum kavua lekdesha. Sacrifices, or not sacrifices, I should say, consecrated animals that first had a blemish before they were consecrated. So, which is the easier sort of lesser sanctity. Finiftu, and you redeem them. So these animals are chayavim b'bechayra. If it has a firstborn, it's a bechar umatanis, and if you slaughter it, you give the gifts to the kayan, and this applies bein lefnei pidyanan. This applies bein lefnei pidyanan, bein la'achar pidyanan. Bein lefnei pidyanan, bein la'achar pidyanan. Hagayzus va'ivad ben enasefer asarban. Whether before the redemption or after, if someone works it or shears the wool, he does not get malchus. Bein lefnei pidyanan, bein la'achar pidyanan enaisin tmura. Whether before or afterwards it's redeemed, you cannot exchange these animals for another one because they're not a sacrifice. That's not that you cannot. If you try to exchange this as a sacrifice for another animal to be a sacrifice, it doesn't work because it was never a sacrifice, because it had a blemish before you started. It does belong to the temple. So if before you redeem it, you use it, that's considered me'ilah. After you redeem it, it's no problem. And its offspring are mundane. The niftin tmimim, they could be redeemed without a blemish. That's what we learned in the Gemara. V'ladeseim chol v'niftin tmimim. You read that together. The child, niftin chol, v'ladeseim chol v'niftin tmimim. That the child doesn't need a blemish to be redeemed. Just like it's because it's not chamer min a tafel chamer min a ikar. And you're allowed to sanctify it for any sacrifice that you want. The child. What's the general rule here? It's like chulin for all matters. The Gemara, of course, is going to say, why do you have to give us a general rule? You just said all the details. Obviously, you're coming to teach me one more item that you forgot. Right? The only thing is that you have to appraise it and give its value to the temple. Aval Kadam Ekdeshinas Muman, but let's go the other way. Let's say it was sanctified before it got the blemish, or it had a temporary blemish and you sanctified it and then it gets the real blemish. Benifta, when you redeem them. So here we say all the opposite. Peturim mina b'chayra. Its offspring is not a b'char. Mina matanis, and you don't have to give the gifts to the kayan. Whether you redeem it or not, if you work it or you share the wool, you get malchus. Whether before or after the redemption, it does do tmura, like we just said. Did we say before that after the redemption you can do tmura? No, we didn't say that actually, but that's an interesting point. That you can do tmura after it's redeemed. Before the pidyon, there's me'ilah. After it's redeemed, there's no me'ilah. The offspring are sanctified. They're not redeemed without a mum. And look at the words that we were looking for to prove Rav Sheshis is vein matvisin chol zevach sheyotzer. You can't sanctify them for any sacrifice, only the original sacrifice. Klali shaldav, what's the general rule? Harem kaktus chol devrayim, their regular sanctity. Vein lecha behem elat achila bilvad, and they're only permissible to eat. Klali shaldav, what's the general rule? The ratio. Why did we have to say general rules here? It's coming lasu yishektam mechutz tepatz. It's coming to tell me that if you slaughter it outside the temple, that you're exempt. Why? Even though you didn't redeem it yet, but it was never a sacrifice. What's the general rule of the seifa? It's coming to include that you're not allowed to milk it because it was a sacrifice, and you're only allowed to eat the meat, but not the milk. Amar Mar, the master taught. We taught in this brisa. Ein niftim tmimim, vein matvisin chol zevach shiyirtza. You can't redeem them without a blemish. And you can't just sanctify it for any sacrifice. Tmimim hu delay mifraki. Without a blemish, you can't redeem it. Habali mumim mifraki. But if it has a blemish, you can redeem it. L'kol zevach sheyirtze hudein matvisin. Holois is zevach matvisin. But you're allowed to sanctify it to the original sacrifice. Its mother's type. How would you do this? The matvisin lois is zevach v'niftim b'mumin. What you would do is that you would sanctify it before it's born, before the redemption of the mother, and then after it's born, it would get a mum, and then you would redeem it. So name it. That's what Rashi meant before. Rashi said in the moment.
And if it didn't get a mum?
You can't bring it as a sacrifice itself. There's a little bit of an issue there. So name it Tevi Tufta de Rav Huna, but there's a kasha on Rav Huna because Rav Huna said you have to bring it into a pen and you let it die. Mm-hmm. And here we have all the solution given right here in this brisa that you don't have to do that. Rabbi Chanina's solution. So Amalach Rav Huna responds, "Hu adin dafila bali mumenei niftin." No, you read the brisa wrong. Really, you can't redeem it even if it has a mum. So why do you say that you can't redeem it if it doesn't have a mum? That implies that if it has a mum, you can redeem it. It says, we were just giving the contrast from the Reisha. Can't be medayik from there. Everything that we said in the Reisha, we said the opposite in the Seifa. But that's not a reason that you can be medayik there to tell me that, if it has a mum, you can redeem it. We were just trying to make the symmetrical, parallel, that it should line up. We said in the Reisha that you can sanctify it for any sacrifice. In the Sefer we said you can't sanctify it for any sacrifice. Doesn't mean that you can sanctify it for its mother's sacrifice. It just we were making it parallel to the Reisha. Okay, I'll leave it over here. About a page behind. Should be able to do this.